Hi, John. I have some questions. You say that it looks like there's thousands of people now that are passing through that country on the trail. Are people being pretty respectful in the environment with that many people? How about sanitation, and do you see pollution?
Yeah, excellent question. Unfortunately, it's becoming a problem, and it's deteriorated significantly in the last few years because, as I say, the number of through hikers in particular has increased exponentially. I'm kind of paranoid about microtrash because it's so easy to pass over, and I'm talking, corners of granola bar packets and plastic bottle tops and tissues falling out of pockets and all that kind of stuff, and I pick it all up and I bring it down, and that has got significantly worse in the last few years. That's particular, and you can tell, there are concentrations like where some of the water sources are that a lot of hikers stop to refill water. That there are kind of these concentrations of microtrash, and obviously there's no polite way to put it. I mean, if you've got 5,000 people coming through using the forest as a bathroom, that's worse than 1,000 people doing the same thing. And I know that Forest Service and Pacific Crest Trail Association are trying to work on ways to deal with that. But it's a big challenge. And I'm kind of tired of hearing the stories, they're not very pleasant stories about issues with human waste and the problems people have with them. And of course, if you've got 5 times as many hikers now as we had on the trail 6-7 years ago, then of course the problem's 5 times worse. There's no two ways about that. And it's the agencies are kind of struggling to deal with it.
Yeah, I'm curious too. When you're hiking, and do you spend the evenings in the mountains?
Yeah, many times. Yep. Not always. But,
yeah. Have you noticed anything unusual? Like people see flying saucers, or do you hear any loud bangs that you wonder what are those, or have you experienced any unusual things that you wonder about?
Actually, not in the San Jacinto Mountains. No. I spent 2 years living in outback Australia, and I mean extremely remote outback Australia. I'm talking, 1,000 kilometers from the next nearest human. And out there, I have to say, we saw some pretty weird things that we still can't explain. My wife and I'm talking about, that we can't explain to this day. We spent a year driving around in the outback, doing volunteering on wildlife survey work primarily, and there we saw some weird lights, weird things in the sky. But I have to say, in the San Jacintos, I have not. But it's probably only a matter of time. Of course, here I'm surrounded by, I can look down and see the lights of Palm Springs and Palm Desert and Hemet and Banning and Beaumont and all these cities in Riverside County. So if I saw something, I'd probably just attribute it to that. When you're literally in the middle of nowhere, out in some super remote desert in Australia, and you see something, then it's like, well, it's not going to be someone else. So then it's tougher to explain. Out here, I guess my tendency might be, I might be more inclined to dismiss it. But I'm pretty inquisitive by nature, so I'm not going to ignore something like that. But no, so far in the San Jacintos, nothing yet. But it's probably only a matter of time.
Yeah, and when you look down on the population from the mountain, do you see mankind as developing in a good way, or do you see things going bad?
It's impossible for me as somebody who worked as an endangered species wildlife biologist to view things positively, I'm afraid. I'd have to say that's one of the things that I enjoy about being up on the mountain, is that I can feel like, hey, I'm on this island and I'm looking down on everybody else. And I mean, there are times I'll be completely honest that I was sort of wish they just stayed down there. I'm very glad people come into the mountains and appreciate the forest and hopefully do appreciate it and learn and understand it. And, it's extremely hard to maintain a positive attitude about the direction our environment's going. And that's based on nearly 30 years of a professional career and 40 plus years as somebody who's been out hiking, backpacking, enjoying the environment, and like I say, with an expert background. No, I wish I could be more positive, but it's impossible. The facts are overwhelming, I'm afraid. And that's just whether you look at it really objectively or whether you just subjectively are sitting on San Jacinto Peak and looking at the urban sprawl below you, and the visible effects on the air quality and noise and the planes going over and all that kind of stuff. I wish I could be more positive, but that would be naive, I'm afraid.
Do you think about things when you're up on the mountain about like what would happen after your physical body isn't able to hike anymore, or physical body no longer is alive? Do you have any ideas about what is your view of what takes place when you no longer have a physical body?
I'm a very what's the best way to put this? A very practical scientist, I'm afraid. I think when it's over, it's over. There's a part of me that would like to be able to see what's going to happen by 2100, for example, because that's often the date that's mentioned. By then sea levels will be at this, or by then the temperature rise will be this, or but I accept that I'm not going to see it, and you know what? Maybe that's not a bad thing. But no, I'm not a religious person. I've had the good fortune in Australia and Latin America and even here to spend time with the indigenous peoples in all of those areas, and I have a lot of respect for their views and beliefs. Frankly, I probably have more respect for that than I do for some of the so-called organized religions. But in terms of my own personal post-mortem beliefs, they're really simple. And that's, everyone's entitled to their own opinion when it comes to those sorts of things. That's probably the best way to answer that.
Yeah. Just another question. Have you ever had experiences in your dreams, like what we call real guides, like Bazaar Tars, or do you pay attention to your dreams?
I do, but I don't think I've had the experiences that you're referring to. But yeah, I do. I don't know that there's anything else that I've really got to add to that.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem.
What would you say would be the... Oh, okay, go ahead, Val.
Go ahead, Tim. Yeah, no, I'll let you finish it off. We have about 10, 15 minutes, so yeah. Oh,
yeah, I was just wondering what your idea would be as a reference to everybody that wants to use these trails or get out into the whatever you want to call it, wilderness or nature that's pretty undisturbed by all the activity of the humans. And do you have a guidance to share?
I mean, I would just encourage people to get out and enjoy. I mean, frankly, I would encourage them to get out and enjoy it now whilst they still can, because frankly, there are very few areas in the world, and I've had the good fortune to travel to an awful lot of places, and study the wildlife in those places, and regrettably, very few places in the world where the situation's actually improving. So I would encourage people to get out. Obviously, a huge part of the problem that we have is just the disconnect between people and wild places at this point. And in the American West, we're for a country as developed as the U.S. is, in the American West, we're blessed with having an awful lot of extremely wild places. And get out and make that connection with those places while the opportunity still exists, because those opportunities are diminishing. That's the brutal reality of the situation. That's not a subjective opinion. I mean, that's just an objective fact at this point. So in a broad sense, I'd say living in California, we have the good fortune to have those sorts of places and get out and enjoy them, but obviously do it in a respectful way, which hopefully people will.
And another thing I was wondering about, in your roaming around this planet, have you seen any of the artifacts of the ancient civilizations and wonder about how they were able to do certain things, create their buildings the way they do and things?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, no, I grew up not far from Stonehenge in southern England. As kids, my parents took us to all over the British Isles initially, and then different parts of Europe, and we made a point of going and looking at those sorts of features and structures. And then, obviously, with having spent many years in Latin America, had the good fortune to go to sites of everywhere from Peru to Argentina to Mexico, Guatemala, you name it, every country in Latin America. And it's
wow.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable the ability of what humans can do when they put their minds to it. And some of the things I've seen, it's almost hard to imagine how you would do it now with the equipment and the technology and theoretical knowledge that we have. The fact that those things were done, fill in the blank, 1,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago is almost incomprehensible. But at the same time, it should hopefully give us some degree of positive thought or energy that if we turn our minds to something, we can do it, because there's abundant evidence of that scattered all around the planet. But you've got to have the will. That's the bottom line.
Do you think there are aliens from other planets that have been on Earth?
That's a little bit outside my area of expertise. Putting my scientific hat on, and like I said, I saw some things in the Australian desert that were extremely hard for me to explain as someone with a scientific background. And I think I'll leave it at that. But it's a good question.
Yeah, because it seems like I'm becoming aware of it's aliens that are actually using us humans as, it's like we're on their human farm. We're prisoners on this planet, and that they control the governments, and that's why the world is the way it is, that people aren't aware of what's really going on. And I guess most people at this time don't seem to really want to know or are seeking to find out what's really going on. Claudia knows quite a bit about beings from other planets, like reptilians and Syrians, and it sounds like some people have relationships with these other beings, experiences. Maybe she could mention some of it.
That might be getting a little bit outside my area of expertise, I think.
Yeah, it's like it takes a risk taker to explore where a person has never explored before, still wondering, like a child's heart, interested in whatever is presented, and wonder about it and try to find out how things are. Anyway, yeah, John, it's good talking with you.
I agree completely. I think it was Einstein who said he wasn't particularly smart, he was particularly inquisitive. And I think that's one reason why I like getting out and being up, traveling and being out in wild places and in the mountains on such a regular basis, is because I'm always open-minded and seeing something new and learning something every time I'm out there, either about myself or the planet or the organisms around me. So I agree with you in that regard.
Val, did you have anything else you wanted to ask or discuss with John or Claudia?
No, I think I'm good. I really enjoyed the discussion, John. I mean, you're just wonderful what you're doing and your perspective and all that. So keep it up. Maybe we'll see you up there in the mountains sometime. I'm here in Huntington Beach, so I'm probably 2.5, 3 hours away or so. So I may come up and see you sometime.
That'd be great. Yeah. No, yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about lots of things, but specifically, to get a little bit more knowledge about the San Jacinto Mountains and what I do up here, and the San Jacinto Trail Report specifically. I appreciate you guys taking the time to have me on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe you'll get some more.
It was most enjoyable. Yeah. A great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yep, thanks. Good talking with you. I'd like to end the show with a song. Yeah. New you. I sing that as a attempt to connect with real guidance for a real education. See ya.